Okay, so this is because I had to take a sick day on the second day of finals review for you. So what I'm doing for you guys is I'm going to be going through problems 7 through 11 on your review packet and going through sort of what's going to happen. So I'll be answering them. What I'd like for you guys to do before you actually watch this video is I would love for you to go through and try to do this yourself. And then if you can't, it's totally fine. And you can come back and watch me go through this. So here we go. We are factoring and solving using this lovely quadratic. Now, we have to remember we're doing this. Doing the box and x method. That x right up here from there. Then that 10x is going to go on the bottom of this one here. That 24 is going to go right there. So those are the first things that we do is just place the three things that we have. Then what we do is we multiply the two of these together to put that on the top. So we will have a 24x squared. So now what I'm looking for are two numbers that are going to multiply it to a 24x squared and add to a 10x. We know they're both going to have x's. And then the values you're going to be looking at are going to be a 6x and a 4x. Now, if you guys need the factor sheet, we've got those around the classroom as well to be able to help you out. But those are the ones we're using. We're going to put both of those into boxes that we didn't have so that we can then start factoring stuff out. As we do that, get an x squared, so we know it's going to be x and x. Because I have a 6x here, I know I'm going to have a 6 up here on the top. Because that 4x here, I know I'm going to have a 4 there. And if I check this to the bottom for the 24, that 4 times the 6 works. These are our two things. Factored form of this will then be x plus 4, our side here, and x plus 6 from this top part here. It's going to be equal to 0. Now, because they want us to solve it using the zero product property, I'm going to make one or the other of these equal to 0. So in this case, x would have to be negative 4, so that when I combine it with a positive 4, it's going to give me a 0. Or here, x would have to be negative 6. So when I combine it with a positive 6, it's going to be 0. Those are our two answers for this problem. Flipping the page. Okay. So the next thing that we've got for this one, we are going to be looking at using the quadratic formula. Guys, love the quadratic formula. It's got a song to it that I'm going to sing for you right now. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Even though it's there, I had to sing. So first thing that you want to do, since it's equal to 0, you want to state what a, b, and c are. So you're putting them in the right places. A is 2, because that's the number in front of x squared. B is negative 7, because that's the number in front of x. And C is negative 3, because that's the constant number. Now I'm going to plug them into this equation. So x is going to equal negative b, which is negative 7. I'm using parentheses for all of it, so I can simplify them later. But we do see the double negative there so that we don't get confused with it. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. Now, our b again is negative 7. You want to have that in parentheses so that when you square it, you remember that it becomes positive. Minus 4 times a, which is 2. You know, I don't know if you hear the announcement. I'm sure it's great doing this after school. So then we have the c there with the negative 3. That was unfortunate. So that's what we're doing. Then we have 2a on the bottom. A is 2. So I've just put everything where it's supposed to do, just using the formula that I have over the side. Now my next step is going to be to simplify everything. So here, double negative 7 becomes a 7, plus or minus the square root of negative 7 squared is 49, minus 4 times a times c. Well, that's going to be 4 times 2 times 3. But because I have the two negatives here, this is going to become plus. And 4 times 2 times 3 is 24. Then on the bottom, I'm going to have a 4. Okay. So now the only thing I have to do is add those together. And then if it simplifies, I have to plug it in the calculator and figure it out. So 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 plus 24 is going to give me 73. Now, 73 is a prime number, which is awesome because prime numbers for something like this means that they're not going to break down at all. So in this case, that is as far as I can possibly go because that doesn't break down. None of these divide out. We're good. If it does break down, like if you had a square root of 25, for instance, you'd make it a 5 and you'd have to do both of the additions. I think we're probably good as an example for this one to see what's going to happen. If you're not sure, you can definitely look at this other video that I made on Google Classroom to help you out for that. Now we move on the stuff with exponentials. everything that we did for this was an idea for this pre-work of we have a start value, we have a multiplier, and we're raising it to an x power. So we're going to look first at the way that this is set up and realize that 54 is set up as my start value. And the start value goes along with what we're going to be talking about for our zero term. So that is going to be right there. So we have our first place that we can use for this. Now you check out the multiplier. And in this case, our multiplier is the fraction 1/3. I tend to think of these a little bit better as if you're multiplying by a fraction with 1 over a number. It's getting smaller. It is equivalent to dividing by 3, which means if I'm going down in this direction, I will divide by 3 each time. So if I did a 54 divided by 3, 4 times a third, 54 divided by 3 is going to be 18. And if I do that divided by 3 again, 18 divided by 3 will give me a 6. Now, we've got enough to be able to go down in that direction. The problem is that right now, we still have 2 more that we've got to fill out above it. Anytime that you're doing this, if you go one direction doing one operation, you're going to do the opposite operation going the other direction. So if I'm going up this way and this way, instead of dividing by 3, I'm going to multiply by 3. I also pulled out my calculator for this because these aren't ones I'm going to have on the top of my head. 54 times 3 is 162 up here. And if I multiply that by 3 again, I'm going to get 320 for this top one here. So that gives you the 2 that we have. Now, that's what we do if we're going to have a table when we have the entire equation. What this next one's asking us to do is to take what we have with the table and go backwards into the equation. Now, right now, we don't have a start value and we don't have a multiplier. So we're going to have to find both of those. First thing that I do when I look at any of these things is to take the sides that are the x's because I know they're going up and down by 1. Just fill in the rest. So I have a 4 here, it'll be a 1, and I'll have a 0. So I can get the 0 term there once I figure out what the multiplier is. Now, our fortunate thing here is that we have 2 numbers right next to each other that we can use to find the multiplier. Anytime we want to find our multiplier b, you take 2 terms next to each other like this. You take the second term, in this case 16, on the top, and you divide it by the first term, which is an 8 there. Now, 16 divided by 8 is going to give us the number 2 as a multiplier. So right now, I know that the multiplier part of this is going to be y is going to equal something times 2 to the x power. I just have to work my way backwards to figure out what that first number is going to be. Knowing that that's going to be a 2, well, if I multiplied this way times 2, we'd have a 32 there, which is great. But then if I have to come back this way, instead of multiplying by 2, I'm going to divide by 2. 8 divided by 2 is going to give you a 4 here. 4 divided by 2 is going to give you a 2 as the 0 term, which means our a value is going to be that 2 right there. So the equation is going to be 2 times 2 to the x power. One more problem. Last problem that we have here is to take that same idea, but we're going to be looking from a graph perspective. Now, because I know that I'm going to be doing a times b to the x power when we're doing it, I just need to find both of those parts. So the first thing, and probably the easiest thing for what I'm looking at here, is I want to look right there where it crosses the y-axis and see that I've got that number there is 2. The 0 term is the same as your y-intercept. So in this case, our a value is going to be 2. Now to find a multiplier, I'm going to have to find the next point that I'm going to have right there. And in this case, I found it just right up there. And if I look, there isn't another whole number point that's even on here. So this is going to be 6. So I've got 1 comma 6 for that, and this is 0 comma 2. To find my multiplier, I do it just like I did it with the other one. I take my y values and divide them. So my b value, or my multiplier, is going to take the second one there, 6, divided by the first one, 2. And I'm going to get that my multiplier is 3. So the final equation for this is going to be 2 times 3 to the x power. And that's what we got. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to end this recording.